Uh, we're started. We're live. We're going. Your constant, your face of consternation
I
is.
don't know what the first thing I want to say is.
Hmm.
Um, I have an idea. Let's just go chat Babylon's Fall. Steam.
Hmm. Babylon's Fall.
Babylon's Fall. Okay,
Concurrent.
the peak players in the
Concurrent.
last 30 days is 307.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yesterday, um, uh, it had 62 people yesterday. Wait, that's Monday. That's today. It had a peak today of 78 people.
Okay, now how many of those
Uh,
people are content creators getting content?
um, maybe about 100 of them.
Okay. Well,
Oh, we got up to date. We got 38 playing 45 minutes ago compared to an all-time Steam peak of 1166.
mm,
That's like the meanest number of all.
I love a good news Monday, a good content podcast Monday. Um,
You know,
as you described it, this one in particular has a weird personal edge. Um,
before we continue, I have a question for you, Wooly. Do you ever play any of the classic Call of Duty games in multiplayer? Do you ever see that screen?
nah.
Any of the I know you played the Halo, but they were later, right?
Yeah.
So one of the cool things that they would do is that it would just surface how many people were online at any given time playing the game
Mm,
right there on the main menu as a
mm,
point of pride because they knew. Because they
mm-hmm,
knew.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the current way you got to find out via Steam Spy, for one platform is far from a point of pride. You have to go scurrying through the data that most of the time they'd probably rather have hidden from you. Um, yeah. So Babylon's Fall, the product of uh, Square Enix, in particular, coming along midway through the development of a game and essentially turning it into something else in the hopes that its ability to become a live service game would make it more profitable than just delivering a solid, fun action game, which appears to be what was the original version. That when we broke the story and talked, what broke the story when we talked about it, um, we discussed how, yeah, I had seen many games go through that discussion process, or at the very least, get pushed in that direction because that was a high priority at the time for every product and every property and every IP that Square Enix had influence over. Uh,
Gas it up.
that would include not just all the Squeenix titles, but of course their direct ownership of other studios such as Crystal Dynamics, IDOS, and a couple others in particular. So that was always just a tone deaf, a silly way to go about things. And admittedly, in my time there, I don't know how much has changed, but I would say, based on the fact that Babylon's Fall just came out, that policy is probably still full throttle, pun intended,
Yeah.
because you would think after the first couple of failures with that, your Nosgoths and your Chinatown Wars and such, that they'd stop. So we have the breaking news that comes today, which is that Squeenix has sold off their Western owned companies, particularly IDOS and Crystal Dynamics, to Embracers Group. The deal was for 300 million, and it includes tons of tons of specific IPs to those. But Square Enix Montreal is also included in that because that was a sister studio to Eidos Montreal that was founded a couple years later, more recently here. So that gives them Embracers Group, who currently are like THQ and Gearbox
They're
and such.
THQ Nordic basically, and then
They're
they snapped up some other stuff.
yeah, Gearbox being another big one, and then a bunch of others. But they basically got the IPs for Tomb Raider, for Deus Ex, for Thief. Some are in limbo. There was a question about Sleeping Dogs that was asked during the press conference. No clear answer has been given, but they own a bunch of IPs that come with those names. And this is a business deal that's going to go through sometime this year between July and September.
So I got to raise my hand here, and I have to agree with the general consensus that I'm seeing everywhere from the laymen and also for business people is that they picked up a couple studios who in the past have had really good Rockstar output, but have had bad times lately. And I think everybody can put those bad times on like high end decision making rather than the actual talent of those teams. And they also picked up like 10 to 50 like valuable to extremely valuable to you could do a lot with this IPs in a mass bundle for like a fucking dirt cheap
Discount.
steal. People in the chat just pointed out that exclusivity on Rise of the Tomb Raider alone cost $100 million just like a couple years ago.
So yeah, and so this is what I'm to me as someone who again who like was at used to work there. I'm looking at this and I feel it is a bittersweet win-win because you have all these games and all these IPs that a lot of people care about, and a lot of them have been unused, underutilized, mistreated, and essentially there's no guarantee that switching hands to Embracers Group is going to make them do good things for these IPs, but it can't get much worse than fucking dead now, can it? It can, actually. It can be dead where the last thing that killed it was a completely just derivative product that tried to capitalize on the name and turn it into something else. Your Nosgoths and such, where you just essentially you stop it.
It didn't even come out. How much deader could it be?
You stomp the coffin further into the dirt with these types of projects.
Like the cheap, shitty cash-in, that didn't even come out.
And then when you read, oh boy, going blind again. All right, there we go. We're back. And then when you read the further details where it says that the transaction, which only went for 300 million, enables the launch of new businesses moving forward with investments including blockchain and the cloud, and basically the further pushing down the your NFT game priority that's likely going to be coming. It just kind of goes, okay, they're not gonna get it, and they kind of are gonna refuse to get it. So you know what? Like, I'm sure these studios are not gonna be too bitter about being able to dodge that, right? When
yeah, because like, let's say Square Enix Montreal stayed on, right, and got put out of the deal, right, and the deal was only 200 million, right, like fake numbers, whatever, right? That would mean that Square Enix Montreal gets given the 200 million from the deal and goes, "Hey guys, guess what? Guess what you guys get to make next? That's right, Deus Ex NFT game. Make it work."
And
which would be the most thematically appropriate thing possible ever.
And as a studio that made like some like they made a like Human Revolution was a huge impact, right? That was a massive return for that franchise, and in fact, it's what kind of like put them on the map and created put them out as a winner in Squeenix's eyes and prioritized them. But um, essentially, a lot of just it feels as if a lot of oversight in the worst ways led to some of those projects just not living up to their full potential. It's not a complete. It's not to put it all on the publisher, but it is to say that there's a lot they wanted to do that they couldn't do, and that applies to basically every game that I touched while I was there. And this is no promise of a better future, but it's one that might be different from the fucking nothing that existed, right?
There are so many fun stories to tell about Square Enix, like over its history. Because Wooly, we've been doing this podcast for a while, but also like I just turned 36, right? Woo, I'm old now. You're a little younger than I am, but we've been playing this shit and following this shit forever. And Square Enix might be the most poorly managed Japanese video game studio that still exists. It has had a nonstop history of calamitous, obviously bad business decisions that it has somehow just barely gotten around through
Some
the
of this
strength of its brands and some mergers and shit.
Some people are talking about as well the part where some of this is to like kind of like trim the fat of their Western studios and trim it down to a core of their Japanese development studios, and
That's
I,
a that's a that's a way to phrase that.
and I mean it really like when you look first. So there was the fact that there was such a conflict. I mean, I guess almost 10 years ago, but there was such a conflict when the goal at the time of the person in charge, Wada, was to like get a bunch of Western studios involved and like to see games like Human Revolution and kind of lean in that direction and basically go, hey, which teams are making the best projects right now? We can trust
It's
them with
everybody who used to work at Eidos.
we can trust them with like working on our best games and putting out cool stuff, and that'll be that. That's the way to go with it. And that didn't sit too well with everybody that was over at the Squeenix Japan offices, and eventually that changed to one where it was like, okay, this whole like Western support thing, we're gonna kind of pull back on that, and like you'll be there in periphery, but we're going to reprioritize the Japanese studios we have, and you guys can kind of like I don't know, figure it out, do something, and there was a pullback essentially, as well as a change of leadership that went alongside that, and with that change, it feels like it came a general I don't even like disdain is not the word. It's like uh,
Well, the feeling that I got talking to people from around that
mm-hmm.
area is that it wasn't disdain, but the
No.
feeling that Eidos's stuff was showing up the Japanese studios, there was definitely a generalized insecurity.
There's absolutely that was what birthed the switch. The insecurity was massive, absolutely massive at the time, and you can go and look, and I mean, basically there were projects that things that got canceled that were shoved and things that were killed off that were like not for like uncertain business reasons as much as like potential
Personal
embarrassment
reasons.
reasons, personal grievances. And it's interesting when you go back and you can like see some things where like there's leadership that left the studio that didn't want to be there anymore because they were very excited about the projects that were being worked on by the teams, but the publishing essentially had what's cited as lack of courage, right? They didn't fully believe in what was being put out.
Yeah.
And it's a weird situation where you own a number of studios that are talented and good at what they're doing and are making good things, but that's not making you and your people happy. That's a super weird situation. Um, and again, this is what happens when a new captain takes the ship, and then things kind of change. So anyway, so you that's back whenever. I'm talking ancient shit. I can't talk
That's
about
10 years ago.
I can, but like whatever steers that the course back then, you fast forward to now, where essentially it feels as if 14 is the only thing that's the lifeblood, right? That's what
It pays for every mistake you see.
mm-hmm. And
MMO and that like FF14 success is in a sense poisoning the thought process at Square Enix. And FF11 also did this to a degree, which is how we ended up with the original fucked up 14, because 14 pays for so many mistakes. The thought process comes down. What if we just had 5 more of those?
but proof is still like there's still occasional drops of things where you're like, if you just release a no frills solid video game without all the bullshit, a near automata, right? And you let the people who do this best do it, you get yourself a winner, an acclaimed classic, right? There's, a game like that comes out untouched, unsullied by all the gas design philosophies and all that bullshit, and can just be a full thing. And I mean, I don't know how much Yoko Taro's stubbornness has to deal with that. Him rolling on the floor yelling "fuck you, Square Enix,"
I get a bunch of it.
But
Yoko Taro seems like the kind of guy where they go, hey, we think you should do this. And he'll go, I'll fucking quit today.
Immediately.
And they're like, we just want you to put a costume in the game. And he's like, I'm signing the letter right now.
Yeah. So you have these examples of what is possible, but overall the inability to keep your fingers out of the pies and just push these things, like it just fucking sucked. And so what you get is we're sitting on all these IPs certainly, and we're just never gonna do anything with them because they were worth gold when we bought them, and they are now. But if we can't turn it into a massive subscription success that like microtransactions its way into being like something comparable to 14, then why even bother, and furthermore, these are like beloved IPs that they're Western IPs, they're
not as important.
They're not as important. So
and it's obvious, like, of course, if you're a businessman working at Square Enix in Japan and you've grown up with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and shit like that, right? And you look over at fucking Gex. Okay, Gex is not going to have the cultural and social and personal cachet that Dragon Quest is going to have, right? Obviously not. But it's definitely more than that. It's definitely more than just the natural understanding of the different culture that you came up with. Like, I think you described the gas situation. I can't think of an IP, and obviously I'm going to bring this up because it's the one I care about the most. But Legacy of Kain at one point was so popular that you would see Kain and Raziel in like PlayStation's like main character.
mm-hmm.
You remember that weird era where like characters that Sony didn't own but were still known as Sony
iconic
characters
to the PlayStation system, yeah.
Right? And those games all did fine. They weren't gangbusters, but they were a respectable series of games. Now a bunch of those voice actors are fucking dead. So that's a problem. But I can't think of a single genre of game / IP that is more poorly suited to this kind of business plan, because it was like high-end story content with like voice acting that put Metal Gear to shame, with a time traveling thing and these
Mm-hmm.
hyper
Mm-hmm.
close narrative, almost Zelda. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't do this kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff with that, so it sits dead.
And and then you have the ones that like that lived but were still touched. I mean, like, um, Thief was something else before it turned into
Oh.
what came out, and what it
What? What are
was,
you
but
talking about?
and what it was something that was not the thing that came out. Um,
What do you mean?
and
What
then
are you
management
talking
got
about?
involved, and then it became something else.
What are you talking
Um,
about, Thief? Are we talking
uh,
about Thief now?
uh, uh, uh,
You look
De-
like you want to talk about Thief, but for some reason you're unable to talk about Thief.
Deus Ex 2 was something else before it became what came out. And, you know, there was a thing that seemed pretty cool, and then things happened, and then it became less cool.
I mean, the Deus Ex thing is actually a lot more clear in that it's become very obvious that they took the game, and instead of making the full game, they're like, what if it was a trilogy that we just didn't finish?
The word universe. The word universe. Gotta make it, it gotta have it gotta, can't just.
Mass Effect is Mass Effect is the publishing model to follow.
And we're really good at, but if you went, then anyway, it's just, yeah. So a lot of dumb higher up decisions led to simple, solid games becoming worse than what they were on paper, certainly, and then in some cases not even on paper, but like legitimately in your hands. But regardless of all that, what ends up here is that it's not a complete let go of all their Western things, though, because Square Enix is retaining Just Cause, Outriders, and Life is Strange. So there are still some games that are.
I didn't see that part
Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah. No. Those are three things that, and Don't Nod is now the Life is Strange company. Like they're churning them out. Like those things are doing what they're doing. But yeah, Square Enix is still got those games.
Okay, I'm not gonna speak on Life is Strange and Don't Nod, or what was the first one you said? It
Just
was
Cause.
Just Cause.
Yeah.
I do know Just Cause has been in a very significant decline, but
The days of Just Cause 2 are a long time ago.
As somebody who was like involved in the Outriders like PR campaign and received monetary funds to cover it, only for the game to just repeatedly fall apart. And in particular, there was a very weird period around one of their big patches where they reached out to people to cover it again, and then when you followed up on that email, they went, never mind.
Jesus.
I've never had that happen ever, where they reached out and were like, hey, we're gonna run a campaign, and you go, really? And they go, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Outriders seems like the kind of thing Embracer Group wouldn't want as part of the deal.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, they got a lot. They got a lot in there, I just like. I look at that. It's there's the list of all the things they get for that cost, and like we said, it's nice to hope that like these things have a shot at life again. Also, it's nice to hope that potentially they might have a shot at life with a publisher that is not going to be as fucking like detrimental with their hands-on with the gas services and all the other shit that they did. It's not just the gas stuff, but like other budget cuts and last minute decisions that are like that kind of turn a project into the things that make a game or a movie shit, where just like at the last second you got to make huge changes and make them work somehow. Yeah, any kind of upper management that won't do that. Upper management that might actually give a shit about you because like, hey, you're not just the remnants of the old guard that we still hang on to, even though we don't really want you around, certainly. Which also, I don't know how much that explains the price or not, but it doesn't really feel like they shopped around, you know?
No, it felt like they were desperate to get rid of it for whatever reason.
And that's the priority that those places that
I,
they that's how they looked at them, you know.
Square Enix and the way they handled some of these is just like so astonishing. I don't remember who told me, but I remember going over the budget for the original Tomb Raider reboot, which, like, I don't know if people remember, but the game was becoming visibly more expensive every time they showed it. It was very weird. I can't remember almost any game that was like, they kept bragging about how much money they put into it, and it was like it was something like 150 to 200 million or something for it. And I got somebody to explain to me that the mental process on the budget for that game was that if we put in 50 more million, we'll just make 100 more million back.
Well, when people see the
because
Tress
that's
effects,
how big expensive games work now.
when people see Tress effects in action, they will immediately pre-order. And they will pre-order in the window that gives them the bigger reward because we have pre-order windows, in this.
And like every time the game came up, it was adding something. They added some fucking minor celebrity, Levi, some fucking
they added
remember, a multiplayer.
Chuck. Yeah, Chuck.
And that was gonna add X amount of fucking.
Yeah.
And then the game came out, and they hit a fucking panic button where it was selling the numbers it was always gonna sell, and rather than make any money, they decided, well, we need to get the sales numbers up, so they dropped the game's price to like $20 6 weeks in, and it stayed there like forever. And yeah, that game sold a shit ton of copies at $20.
Yeah. I the thing is too is there's for all these what I was kind of getting at earlier is that for all these IPs that they're picking up, the other part of this is the shit that never got to get made, that was at least just on paper really, really cool and interesting.
There's one of those that's not going to get made.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of them, but essentially, like, the feeling that once the guard changed, the feeling was that I think they were handcuffed. It was kind of a like, you're gonna do this. These are the existing IPs you have. Work on those things, and they certainly had ideas for other things, but like, you're so down the priority list at this point that there's no way we're gonna give you the budget to try anything new. Or like hell no, like fuck that. Stay like and even what's tried and true is not what you're gonna do either. You're just gonna try to get this service thing going. And when you look at something like, I don't know what possibly was the last straw, if you look at Avengers, right, and you go, okay, the Avengers game comes out and it's like, I can't think of a game that, like, in my brain I just think it like my brain just goes, yeah, it's just a story mode game where you play the heroes, but then there's always these like little things to the system of that game that I still don't understand, the roster and the character unlocking system and the like, all these little management things with that game. I'm just like, why isn't it just a straightforward buy the game, play it, it's good, fun thing?
It's funny.
Essentially what Guardians of the Galaxy came out as,
It's
not
funny
Guardians. Guardians, actually, yes, the Star-Lord game.
It's funny to me because I saw this once before and it just clicked to me that it was the same thing, which was Um, Avengers couldn't have been hotter when that Marvel game came out. Like it was the hottest thing that maybe has ever existed, and it was begging for any video game. And they released like a complete pile of shit. And I was thinking it's the biggest ball drop since, and all I can think of is the prequel trilogy for Star Wars, where like every game that came out around the prequel trilogy for Star Wars, when that was the hottest thing in the universe, was like complete garbage. But at least they brought out like 15 of them, except for Pod Racer. Pod Racer fucking ruled.
Sure. Yeah.
And like that was if they it doesn't even follow the fucking movies. They could have done anything. They could have started that whenever. It could have been the simplest fucking Iron Man and Captain America go on some fucking no-name adventure and call it Avengers fucking whatever.
Honestly, I just feel like the fastest, easiest way to take a self-contained normal ass video game and ruin it is to make it endlessly online. To just take a simple thing and then just go, nope, make it an endlessly online game, even when it wasn't designed from the ground up or so. Like it's a simple decision. You do it, you go for that, and then everything that follows is fucking trash. I don't know, like I can't think of an example where that's managed to succeed and like be a runaway success.
I feel like we're gonna hit some kind of either academic or business perception point in a couple of years when it's going to become quantified just how much damage to the average person's experience it is to see something cool and then realize that they have to buy it instead of play the game for it. Because it's not even per game, it's like per industry. So like I spoke to a lot of people. I brought it up a couple weeks ago when you're playing Elden Ring. Like people are coming away playing Elden Ring for 6 hours and actually having the thought of like, oh wow, I just got to play a game. I love Elden Ring so much more now because I just sat down and I played it. And then I just saw somebody pointed out as a really good example of Halo Infinite, a game where I sat down and wanted to play Halo, and the stuff that's not shooting the gun in Halo is so consistently infuriating that I have not played that game in like 4 months and may never play it again because every single thing that's not shooting the gun is like a like bad time in my body when I sit there. And Square Enix is just fucking dedicated to just doing that to every game. And the most frustrating thing, and I bring it up every time, is they already have one of the most successful games as a service ever made sitting right over there in its own studio. And 14 has a really specific formula that they follow. And it's monthly sub, make something the monthly sub feels worth. Monthly sub. And that's an old model. That is a really old model from like decades and decades ago. And we got to see like unironically like $2,500 million games crash and burn because they fucked up the part where they made the thing that was worth the $15. Like that's the important part, where you make something that's worth actually paying it for every month.
And people are excited to continue playing it as opposed to changing it, or even from the ground up if it's designed to be that way, versus changing something that was not intended to be that into that.
Like, I'll take a really good example from this past week. This past week, the Thornton fight came out, the Ultimate Thornton fight. Now, this is maybe one of the most difficult, encounters to ever be designed in an MMO that was ever meant to be cleared. Like, I'm not counting absolute virtue and shit like that fucking made people sick, right? And despite the fact that no one is going to beat this, that and it's for nobody, it's for the sub-tiniest percentage of people, it's been the most exciting thing about FF14 for like a year, because it's so crazy and it's so interesting and it's so cool. And even if I'm not going to play it, I'm glad that it's there. And I'm glad that it got made.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that fucking feeling when I load up Marvel's Avengers and I go to, how can I play the fucking old Cap like outfit, and his fucking face is a complete mangled fucking mess because the texture didn't load in properly, and the answer is $5.
The only way to come out unscuffed, untainted by this overall philosophy is to be near or FF7 remake, right? To just come out like to essentially to be a Japanese like IP with someone heading the project that refuses to compromise on any of that pressure.
And the people who get that treatment are Nomura, Yoshida, and now maybe Yoko Taro, actually. Right? Like,
yeah.
And it's so bizarre because you have these high-level decisions of like, we're going to focus on the blockchain from like, the board and the execs. But at some point, someone is going, okay, but we need to make like regular money though.
Yeah.
And so they give Final Fantasy 16, which is their biggest IP after Dragon Quest, to Yoshida, and they leave him alone.
Well, this
stuff goes away.
But that's the key, though. The key is the part where you leave them alone, right? That's after you make something successful, and you go, oh, they know what they're doing. You can leave them alone. That's the part, right? That's what we're missing here. The trust.
The other thing is there's it's two factors. One is time, right? Yoshida and Nomura and Taro and all these guys, they've been working there 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years in some cases, right? They've been there forever. Everybody knows them. And the other thing is that they trust Nomura to put out a hit. They trust Yoshi P to put out a hit, right? They trust Yoko Taro to come in under budget. That guy doesn't always hit, but that dude comes in under budget, right? But that was never afforded.
Well, but also, we got a mobile game. We're making a fucking mobile game. A near mobile game's coming out. You're not allowed to say no. Yeah.
But that level of trust was never afforded to the Western studios, despite them having their own properties that they had worked on for a decade.
Or it was there and then it was no longer there after a period of time. So with that comes an overall just like, anything else will do at this point, and they don't have the power financially to buy themselves out, certainly, and be like, fuck it, we're going back independent. You know what I mean? Like, this is one of those things where they're hurting as well, and they're not staffed with the same people. Like, things have changed over the last 10 years. There's been a fluctuation of talent in and out, but for the most part, like, those IPs are still ones that people care about, and they deserve to be in better hands. And in this context, any other hands equal better hands. So
anything.
So Godspeed, Embracers groups. Let's see what the fuck happens that's another monster list of acquisitions that they have. That's another huge monster fucking blob of a whatchamacallit, a publisher. But yeah,
we own that thing. Like,
let's see what happens.
Oh,
I mean, IO got themselves out of there, right? They
and good for them.
IO had the power to back the fuck out a couple years ago and be like, nah, we're taking Hitman and we're going home.
And they and that, oh man, you want like the absolute perfect example. You go look at Hitman before, during, and after Square Enix management.
They took their
Good,
ball and they went
good,
home,
good.
man.
Excellent, excellent. Why
You
is
know,
this one so bad?
not everybody
Lee,
gets
excellent,
to
excellent,
BIO, man. But there
like
it is. There's your example. You know. So yeah, yep.
I'm gonna go look something up because they made other. um. So let's put into perspective the value here. 300 million for what is essentially what used to be Eidos, right? And everything that comes with it. That's Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, Legacy of Kain, Gex, and a bunch of other classic to pseudo classic IPs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus some studios for 300 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Embracer Group picked up fucking Gearbox for 1.3 billion. Just Gearbox and the Gearbox IPs, which are Borderlands, Aliens, and Brothers in Arms. So Borderlands.
Blizzard, was 5 times that amount, practically,
Yeah.
for everything that includes. Yeah, this is a crazy lowball. Based on what you'd expect.
This
Oh yeah, don't forget Duke Nukem and Battleborn, of course not.
you know what? I
Yeah,
did.
70 billion for the Microsoft Blizzard acquisition. You know, um,
It's
to see something like at that level of just like shaved, it's like it's again, it feels like there was no shopping around. It feels like there was no back and forth. It feels like just like
it
best
it
and final. What do you want for it? Garage sale. Here it is. Get these
so
Western studios out of here.
do you know what my like real nightmare is on this?
Mm.
My like gut nightmare is that $300 million deal is going to go directly into one or maybe two blockchain NFT games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they might as well just burn it now. They might as
But
well just set it on fire.
but step 3 requires a step 2. I've been trying, like I've been talking to Punch Mom about this, and everything we watch and there's just this thing where you often see a bad decision incoming and you go, oh no, how did we get here? And it's like the foresight it takes to not make this current bad decision required you to not be an idiot about it 8 steps ago. So why would they not see that as a potential huge windfall? If we can just nail this NFT game thing, if we can just get there ahead of the curve, if we look at what Ubi's doing, and if we can just be the pioneers of this, that'll be the way. Kind of like that gas, bet that we hedged all these IPs on a bit before this, and and live service as it's the same fucking thing of just like you didn't.
They already missed it.
And, but there is no it. There's no success version to land on.
But like the cryptocurrency shenanigans and the NFTs, that boom lasted for like 90 days. And then everyone who got their money fucking ran away. Did you see that motherfucker tried to sell Jack's tweet?
Yeah.
Did you see what happened to that?
For from hundreds of millions.
For like $2,000.
For like 2
He paid
Gs.
like $24 million for it.
I mean the same level of just complete blind stupid leadership where you're just like, yeah, we're gonna double down on these massive gambles. It's the same thing that we talked about when they would introduce a lot of this dumb micro to begin with, where you're just like, the risk, the prospect of the payoff, whoever's in their ear talking to them about it and showing them like the potential charts, it's so big and like greedy that it can't be denied, you know. And people who are sitting on the board that are making the decisions there, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. These are the people that
And
are
they
going to
got
be
big
there.
dollar signs on their
They're going to
eyes.
be there for the rest of our lives, pretty much. So like it's not, you're not going to see any massive changes to that style of behavior when you're committed 10, 15 years in down this road, you know. And all people kind of want is just for you to just make a normal game that they will happily buy. Like it's yeah, that decision to dump it all in on the dumbest possible investment you can. Like they didn't even have to put that statement out, but it just underlines how much it's
Oh,
like,
they just
okay,
throw it right away.
yeah,
Just throw it
just
right away.
we'll trade, you know, like take all these things that everyone wanted, good things for and cared about, and just absolutely flush it immediately. And you're like, cool, this is the trajectory. And if that doesn't show you what, if that doesn't convey the image of them diving off of a bus going off a cliff, I don't know what does, you know.
So I don't know, like the age or the makeup of the square board, or you know the people who make the decisions, but I have to be in awe that there hasn't been some kind of like shareholder revolt over the years, because like they will take one bad idea and they will run with that bad idea for 10 years until it almost liquidates the company. There's very famously Square Pictures,
Mm-hmm.
which was Sakaguchi's brainchild,
Mm-hmm.
which as a child I could have told you was a bad idea. And they had to merge with Enix. And then came the HD era, which I have to like describe as a phrase. People come to Final Fantasy for great stories and the most cutting edge graphics available, which led them down like the rabbit hole of putting out an FF game every like 4 or 5 years, and everything that was with the mismanagement of 13 and 14 and 15 and then the gas and like
They have more parachutes than most, though. Any other
they
studio
do.
would have been completely bankrupt by these decisions by now. But
And one of those reasons is, hey, motherfuckers, do you kids like Dragon Quest?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yay, we love Dragon Quest. I love it. Right? Like, that
Now
helps.
now correct me if I'm wrong, but is Dragon Quest not also a franchise that remains unfucked with?
Even when they fucked with it, what I'm going to say is they fucked with it with care.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh,
So
lovingly. Okay.
the Dragon Quest Builders games are apparently excellent little Minecraft clones. And the Warriors games are fine.
Medium
They're at
pace.
best inoffensive, at worst inoffensive.
Okay. But the mainline shit never got,
No.
you know, ripped apart. Yeah, okay.
They're even going and taking the MMO that a bunch of people couldn't play and turning it back into a regular game, which is the anti-Square Enix.
Yeah. So there's the parachutes, and then there's the like, you are not allowed to disrespect this game with your bullshit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, so that's a fucking weird one, man. And we'll see how it shakes out.
Like this whole article reads like, to me, it was like Legacy of Kain, Tomb Raider, and Deus Ex escape Square Enix, and also Square Enix burns some money, I guess. Like, there's no down. Like, what downside is there? How much worse could Deus Ex be treated than the nothing that it is right now?
I mean, there's no, and also like the the direct phrase is the transaction enables the launch of new businesses moving forward with investments in fields including blockchain, AI, and the cloud. So that's a straightforward 1-to-1. That's exactly where
Wooly,
that 300 mil is going.
how long has Square Enix been putting money into the cloud?
I mean, definitely the entire time I was there, but like uh since the start of the seventh generation.
Okay. Have they gotten anything out of that? Anything of value? Anything?
I,
Like
I maybe the servers that you guys use on 14. I don't know.
no,
I don't.
those are custom built regular ass MMO style servers down in California.
I don't know, but I always remember.
Like,
Yeah. Well, anyway, just yes, and it can.
do you remember Kingdom Hearts coming out on the Switch just a little bit ago and it's just being like a completely unplayable fucking mess?
It's just it's just just gambling on it, gambling on this tech. It's gonna, if we make it work, it's gonna
It's
work though.
it's totally wild because Sony, I mean, they got that new PlayStation Plus thing coming in that's like, well, I'm sure we're going to talk about that today. But like PlayStation Now, right? That's not the fucking game changing whatever, but like they got something out of it. They put out a product that you could buy or rent or whatever you want to call it, right? Like,
Yeah. I just I don't know. This just there's nothing about this like sequence that doesn't make sense. It's just infinite bad decisions that follow each other, and then a series of really good IPs that are being made, like worked on by talented people that are not being fucked with in the middle of that bad torrent of management in Square Enix Japan. And then over here, yeah, you get fucking Raziel and Lara Croft diving to safety, you know, and just tucking and rolling, and grabbing Jensen
like
with them.
I I have to say, like, there's a lot about Legacy of Kain that hurts in my heart. At the very like, why didn't a goddamn HD collection ever come out? Like, do you know how much of a pain in the ass it is to actually just go ahead and play those games? It's a fucking massive fucking pain. But like Tony J's fucking dead, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the third most important character in that game, and he's fucking dead. And he was alive for a while after those games started coming out. Stopped coming out. Yeah, Michael Bell's gonna go soon. He's like 80. He's in the first episode of TNG, for fuck's sake. You want a fucking weirdo brain thing? Go watch TNG. The villain of that episode is played by Raziel.
Have they ever talked about like their feelings on returning to work on it or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge, but they seem cool.
Okay.
I'm sure they'd be down.
Because yeah, there's always the the awesome strategy of like the games that are known for their incredible voice acting. Just wait until the talent literally is no longer with us. You know.
I don't know if Simon Templeman is fucking, because he's like the guy who voices Kane sounded like he was a million fucking years old when he was like 20. Oh, he's only 68? Jesus. Okay, he's fine.
So does this now mean that straight up you can get yeah, this means you can get Jensen, Lara, and Raziel in Saints Row. You can just throw them right in. Same world.
So you joke, you joke, but I don't know if you remember what the last legitimately like thoughtful piece of Legacy of Kain content ever to come out was.
Yes, it was in Lara Croft when you could switch Lara and the her the
Tupek, Toltec, something like
Toltec,
that.
yeah. When Toltec, you could swap them for Kain and Raziel.
And they had
That's the
voice
last
acting
one.
for the whole story.
That's it.
And
Yep.
it's not even that far off. Like if I saw
Hmm.
Michael Bell as Raziel in Saints Row just show up for unironically 5 minutes, do a bit, eat a guy's soul, and fly
And peace
away,
out.
I would be like, cool.
Yeah.
Like it's not like what I wanted, right? I'm not like, yeah, it's my boy, but I'd be like, oh, that's cool. I'm not upset. Like every single time I thought about fucking Legacy of Kain over at Square Enix, where it's just sitting in a drawer.
And look, I don't think anybody's gonna fucking exactly. No one's gonna complain about that. No one's gonna complain about like, hey, look, it's Garrett. It's Garrett snooping around. He stole a
And why
thing.
not? I
Fuck
mean,
it.
I just saw somebody point out that like these characters might now like fucking put fucking Kain in fucking Fortnite. Fine, whatever. Fine,
It's
whatever.
all on the table. It
Like
doesn't matter.
Lara was in there. How come Jensen and fucking Kain never got into Fortnite? They're cool.
Um, yeah, and I guess since Johnny Gat was in Dive Kick, this also further links the universes that the Baz is a part of. Since
That's a big link.
since you can go Baz to dive to Johnny Gat and Dive Kick, Johnny
Hold
Gat
on.
Saints Row, uh, over to Embracer Group. You get Deus Ex. Uh, you get Lara Croft with that. Yeah, you get a lot. It opens up the
Okay,
possibilities.
hold on, because okay, so Baz was in Dive Kick with S-Kill,
Mm-hmm.
who is the boss of Street Fighter 4,
Well,
who
not
who know,
directly. Not
who
directly.
know who knows Ryu.
I mean, shit. If you,
Okay.
yeah, all right. And so that means that, so if you give Baz a Ryu number of like 5, even
Yeah.
though he originated in Street Fighter 2.
It's the Fortnite
He started
really.
in Street Fighter 2 and concept art, but still
Yeah.
has a Ryu number of 5.
Yeah, it happened. And Fortnite really like because the whole thing like oh so and so's in this and then so and so's in that like Fortnite really like took a lot of the fun out of that because as soon as you can connect to a character that's been in Fortnite, you can connect to like every comic
Everything,
book that's
all
ever come
things.
out.
Yeah.
Like
There's a screenshot that just came out of like hey, look, new Marvel versus Capcom, and it's just the full list of all the Marvel and all the Capcom and Marvel characters, and it's like, oh my god, they have like a bunch of
it's
X-Men. They've got a
it's a
bunch of Street
lot.
Fighter. Like you could just released a roster that was basically the MVC1 roster in size at this point.
Yeah.
Depressing.
I'm eager to see anything from this deal.
Literally anything.
Like anything.
Any action at all, any announcement at all, any of it is a win. Because it's not stomping the corpses further
Wait,
into the ground.
is Kratos in Dive Kick?
Kratos is not in Dive Kick. Kratos is in Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight! And Kratos is in Fortnite.
There
Somebody
you go.
just pointed out that he has a Ryu number of 3 because it goes
There you
Baz, Kratos, Ryu.
There you go. Okay. Okay.
Shovel Knight's the connecting force there.
Anyway, please get some fucking warm blankets and coffee for these IPs. They're gonna need to heat up around the fire. Get them some a hot meal, and just give them some time to get over their trauma. But they're free.
I need to ask you, what result of this deal are you the most excited to see first?
The potential for sleeping dogs to return.
Okay, for me, it's how Square Enix is going to throw their money away. Like, like, like you're gonna see it, and you're gonna see it from a great distance, and everyone's gonna have the same feeling of like, oh man, that's that's a bad idea. Oh man.
Okay, Outriders and NFTs. Like just have the two post-it notes on a bulletin board and just slide them together.
I've
Yeah.
never felt a 180 on a game more than Outriders in its pre-release state to Outriders in its post-release state. It went from a really, really fun loot shooter to a completely fucking unplayable mess. Like, just unbelievable.
I mean, alternatively, if they just kept taking other games' assets and dropping them into Babylon's Fall and just making it a Mugen, that could be interesting too. For the 10
I
concurrent
have to
players.
say, the fact that the assets in Babylon's Fall look worse than the games they're being pulled from is just hilarious.
But that's pretty much always the case, though, because it's not made for that. Like
Well, yeah,
it's
because those
not for
assets were
that
made
lighting
for the engine
engine,
they were made for.
not textured the right way. Like it's always like that. Anyway, so that fucking that's the big one. That's a big one. For pennies on the dollar.
Woke up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pennies on the dollar. Just
Pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm.
like, I forget which Tomb Raider game it was, but it going exclusive to Microsoft for that one game was $100 million. And you compare that to like multiple studios and all the like,
I gotta
wow.
I gotta check in on some friends and see what's going on. See what the mood is.